This is the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.
Right, here it is, the first Springbok team with the Tri-Nations. I want to keep saying Tri-Nations. It's the Rugby Championship. You and I had a big mouthful to say about this cumbersome name last week. And I attended the press conference after an almost aborted attempt to confirm my attendance from the Bushveld, which ended up in the wrong email. So now I'm there on the grace of the Springbok media team. I was almost kicked out of there. So Harry, first and foremost, welcome back and thank you for making time for us. I'm going to read the team before you and I start. Let me just start with this. It's a basic. Everybody would have known this team with a couple of surprises we'll get to just now. Front row, Ox and Malcolm and Wilco. Wilco still a tender point here in Pretoria. And then Eben, Loot, Marco van Staden, Peter Seftoy. And then the biggest surprise, I think, for this entire match was Kolisi at 8. After Rassie specifically said at the very first press conference of this cycle, Sia is a 6. He will never be considered for an 8 in a Springbok setup. Grant and Marnie, speed. Then Kirtley and Etel van der Merwe on the wings. We'll get to that just now. For me, another surprise, Andre Esterhuizen, but it was explained away, which we'll get to just now. And then Apelele Fassi. I think we'll get to the bench just now. I wanted to ask you, when you saw this team, the very first thing that jumped into your mind, what was your initial impression?
Speed. Massive speed. There's not a 9, 10, 15 that you could put on the planet together that if they were all running a relay against each other, 3x3, 100 meters and whatever, the box would finish, they would lap everyone. That's a sign, that's a signal. So if you see the first signal on speed in the back line, with the only non-speed pick being Andre, but Andre's also picked as a hybrid. So he's probably the carrying 8 because he is not going to come in from the trams. He's going to come off long edges. He's going to, do wide rucks, and he's going to try and combine with the Lekkerbacks, whereas Andre is going to be counterintuitively a forward, a Dwayne Vermeulen carrier. So try to get him on the kickoffs, restarts, dead carries where there's no momentum, and find your momentum with Andre. In the forward pack, what it jumps out at you there is 2 open-siders. And if Malcolm Marx is one of the best non-open-siders, you've got 3 guys on the floor against Fraser McWright. So even if Joe Schmidt boxes clever and picks his Carlo Tizano plus Fraser McWright, the pooper, Michael Hooper and David Pocock was called the pooper because it was 2 open-siders and was very devastating against better teams because you just, you soak, 10 phases, steal, 8 phases, pilfer, jackal, penalty, you just survive. So this is a statement of intent that you can have Peter Steff, who's not bad on the jackal, Malcolm Marx, Sia, and Marco, and you're just going to ESCOM clean. You're just going to do, load shedding all day. So you're just going to make the Wallabies very uncomfortable. The other thing that leaps out, if you combine so many open-siders, deck players, we call them, forwards who play to the ball, hands guys, Sia's great in contact with his hands, Peter Steff, Malcolm Marx, and you combine that with this incredibly speedy back line. The scouting report from the Lions series and from recent Wallabies is their defense is not good and they're leaky. So if we're just going to play, let's match, we can score 5, 6, 7 tries. You can score your 1, 2, 3 maybe, but that's easy. So that's the easiest way to win any contest is just go, okay, we both go crazy, but we're crazier, we're fitter. We've been in altitude for 3 weeks. Probably the selections are almost like who was the fittest, who had the highest scores in the fitness regime. And so they're just going to attack that very weak, shaky 13 channel. If they pick Joseph Akusu Soali at 13, he was a matador and doesn't know, he will not be able to read what Kirtley Arendse and Edwil van der Merwe do. He won't be able to read he won't be able to stay with Fassi if they're in the air. For the first time in his life, he'll be out-jumped. I don't know if he's ready for the trickiness of Manie Libbok, which is like Finn Russell, but maybe even crazier. And so I think it's a statement of the Wallabies. Joe Schmidt in his 70-plus games at Ireland, his teams conceded an average of 17 points a game. This Wallaby outfit in 17 games is conceding 24. 24 versus 17 is a converted try. Not good enough. There's only been 2 good defensive games by the Wallabies under Joe Schmidt, one against Ireland in Dublin and one in the monsoon against the Lions. So the statement is, okay, you're a pretty good attacking team. You've had 10 or 11, 12 maybe good attacking games, but you've only had 2 good defensive games. And so I think the Boks are saying we can score 35, 40 on the Highveld. Can you, Wallabies, can you score 20, 25? That's it.
I was about to ask you, I saw an interesting post on X or Twitter. Somebody who added the number 24, the 24th player, and it was altitude. The fact that they picked such a speedy team, such a quick bunch of quick players, you think that must maybe specifically with Alice Park, and the height and everything else taken into consideration.
Yeah, not even picking Archie on the bench. So basically saying we think we have the edge on you. Our wings are quicker than your wings. We think that our forwards are more mobile. So you pick Will Skelton and Rob Bellatini, great attacking player, but not a great defensive juggernaut. A heftier 8, Harry Wilson up against a very speedy Sia Kolisi. If he's at 8, I mean, he'd be a quicker 8 than most, although he's not going to play 8-8. Yeah, so I think it's a statement of intent that normally when you have Boks arriving at altitude, it's not really an advantage because people don't live there. The guys who play in Japan, the guys who play on the coast, a lot of Sharks in this team, but they've been there for 3 weeks, just, throwing up for the first week, gassing the second, and the third week, you finally have your legs back. But if you give guys like Afele Lefase or even Oxenche mobile, you give him that kind of time at altitude and rev him up, and he drops 2 or 3 kgs, puts on a kg of muscle. Guys like Malcolm Marx. I mean, it's very devastating to actually see athletic superiority in rugby. Most of the times when top teams play, the athletes are somewhat similar, and then it's more about the game style, the pay, and the precision. In this one, I think the Boks have picked an athletically superior team, much like the Wallabies did to the Lions in the third test, going, we're going to do something that you don't have any way around. If Maro Toje and James Ryan are knocked out, you have no locks. We've got giant locks. We're just going to roll over you. So I think this is one of the speed of besides Max Jorgensen and on a good day, Tom Wright, but none of those guys would be able to catch Grant Williams or Fussy.
Talking about Sia now, Rassie said Sia's going to be 8th man in the scrums, and that's it. He's still going to play his normal Sia type games. Why would they do that? Firstly, in terms of the 8th man, thinking back to Dwayne Vermeulen, you posted this weekend as well, said Dwayne Vermeulen has still not been replaced in the Springbok setup. Who's going to take the ball and run up and run through the wall? Do you think it might be somebody like Andre Esterhuizen that you referred to earlier, playing a bit of hybrid or being now sort of the 8th man, incumbent almost, let's call it that?
Yeah, I think whether it's minute 20 or minute 75 when Kwaga's on, the thinking is that there's forwards that are good hands guys and that are high energy guys, even like Franco Mostert on the bench, where you're not going to really, does Mostert work harder than Andre Esterhuizen? Maybe, but is Andre Esterhuizen always the quickest forward if he's a forward? Yeah, he is. He's still a quick back in a way, and so then, but he looks like a number 8. So Harlequins used him in that way as a primary ball carrier, sometimes 20 times a match. So I think. So the replacement for Dwayne Vermeulen with Jasper Wiese out, I've always compared number 8's good ones as bears, and then do they have the map or not the map? So Dwayne Vermeulen is special because he's a big bear, grizzly bear, but he has a GPS navigation system in his head. Jasper's still finding that GPS. Kubas, his brother, little brother, baby brother also. Ruiz has his, learning thing he has to learn. Cameron Hanekom may not be enough of a grizzly bear. So there's all these different ways in which they're not. Strangely enough, when you look at Andre Esterhuizen a different way, and you look at him just like what are you? If you never knew who he was and he rocked up to practice, you'd probably think he was an 8. So, and he's very difficult to put down in the first tackle. You make everyone commit 2. So once you're out of the scrum, there's no reason why a guy couldn't shape as an 8, no matter what his number is. It doesn't matter. Off rucks, off second rucks, phases, lineouts. Andre will be probably that kind of Dwayne Vermeulen type carrier, and they're going to keep Sia on the tram where he started to play tram at Loftus a year ago against Ireland to create those 2-sided ruck attacks, and then you also have a cleaner out there for Kurt Lee Arendse. Sia mostly playing on the left, Peter Steph mostly playing on the right. you stretch the field, you create mismatches. So if Kolisi is running from the long edge on a wide ruck and he's running up against, Len Ikitau or Max Jorgensen, he's just going to run over him. He's not even going to be, he's going to be doing what Ty Byrne did on the try he scored in the second test, where he just ran over 3 Wallabies. So that's the Tony Brown approach, is two-sided ruck attacks, no rucks almost, like such quick ball that you almost have no rucks. And then you just to beat the open sider, because there'll be no Aussie open sider on both sides. Fraser McWright and Carlo Tizzano has to pick one area for the steal, the pull for the jackal. You cannot be in 3 spaces. So looks like Andre will be the tight middle carrier. Peter Steph and Siya Kolisi will be the leaders of those outside pods. And then you're going to want to have a lot of angles coming in, Kirtley, Edville working in diagonals that, come off the ball, maybe even around Jesse on the inside. So the point there will be to keep showing the Wallabies different looks. And some of the young guys haven't seen it. Max Jorgensen, Su'ali, they haven't seen these types of multi-sided attacks. When the Lions did that, they scored tries. They scored tries quickly. They had an 18-point comeback because they kept throwing different looks. So it actually makes sense the more you think about it. Sia has played 8 enough at the Sharks to handle what we'll call the set piece 8 part, keeping the ball at your feet, getting the call from the 9. He's a proper scrummager. He doesn't slough off at 8. So I can see why Rassie would have changed his tune. Sure.
I'm interested or intrigued almost. We know Andre was picked because Damon de Lende's got a small injury, a back nickel. But he could have played, he will play next weekend apparently. But the fact that they now had to choose Andre, do you think that opened the door for Sia to go to 8? Or do you think the planning was always to be Sia at 8 now, even if Andre wasn't there? If Andre is not there and Sia is at 8, who would have taken that, bruiser kind of role on? Who would have been the natural candidate there?
No, I think you're right. You wouldn't want to throw Ethan Hooker at this stage of his career in. Andre, even though he only has 20-odd caps for the Boks, he's a tremendously experienced campaigner. He was one of the top, I think he was the top Premiership Player of the Year once, and was built on carries. He's an offloader, got a big boot. He's a multi-skilled player. He's literally he's like the counter version of Kwacha or Dion Ferry, where you have a small forward who can do back stuff. Andre's a big giant back who can do forward stuff. And so I think that does open it up. And if you think of how many scrums there are, and then you think of how many rucks or breakdowns there are, and then you apply that ratio, it doesn't really stick you in one spot. Now, so in second phase, when you're cleaning a ruck and then you have to go out the back, then it's true that when you put Andre more like a forward carrier in a pod with forwards, then it does make you have to do something out there. And so that's where I think guys like Fassi, Willemse on the bench come in handy, because Damien Willemse can kind of play anywhere you want. I mean, there's almost no position on the back line besides 9 that you wouldn't want him. So when he glues in final 30 minutes, he's running into Len Ikitau with Su'ali'i. And so you're okay with Andre just keep plugging and just say, Andre, you get all the carries where we're not really got momentum, and we're trying to get some. And if we don't get it, we kick over the top.
Mm. Interesting thing that I wanted to talk about. I thought Rowan Arquette is going to be the sort of heir apparent. Now, Franco Mostert is back in the picture. Yeah, he can also play 7, but so can Rowan. Rassie referred to him at his press conference as Forrest Gump. He's got a diesel engine and he can run all over the field. And that keeps on running. And we remember him running even on a broken leg, against Ireland. So what do you think the thinking is there? Is it sort of a last hurrah maybe for him, or is he still pretty much in the running?
Yeah, we've learned to not read too much into any 1 week's pick. But I do think in this particular case, the idea of Franco Mostert, Sauce, just checking him out, just seeing, how much petrol you have in the old engine, where's the reserve tank of diesel. And I like it. I like it because it's it pays honor and homage to long soldiers, warriors. It's almost like, man, you broke your leg and you kept playing against Ireland. We owe you something. And I think you also look into line-out calling. So Nortje is really shaping up. Your boy Ruan, he's really shaping up as a great line-out caller. And so, but you have it. So in Cape Town, don't be surprised if no matter how well Mostert plays, you might see Ruan back. And Archie, I think actually that's what I would suspect. We always knew there was going to be a speed and then a power lineup for these two tests, and we kind of thought it might be the other way around. Power up front, and then go crazy with some carnival rugby, festival rugby in Cape Town. Maybe it's flipped around, and you see Pollard, Snyman, big boys, maybe two locks on the bench with Nortje. And so maybe that's where we're looking. But I've just learned in these latter days of Rassie, you don't know. You never know. And you don't even know what it really means. I do think that Ruan versus Franco is a head-to-head. They are basically like for like. High energy, skinny locks, sort of big flanks, good line-out practitioners, monster cleaners. Mostert's still the better lock cleaner than Ruan, actually. So maybe it's just an energy pick.
Something that I've been thinking about that I wanted to say earlier, and the words escaped me. Rassie is not building a squad anymore. Rassie is in a position that he can pick a team for a specific day. I know it might sound obvious, and pardon me if I sound a bit foolish, but like I said now, with Damien de Allende being injured, I can bring Sia to 8, bring Andre, I can do this, and I can bring Kanan in here for today, for these circumstances. But next week might be something completely different. Isn't that the ultimate luxury? Now, let's give credit where it's due. He built that luxury. He created it for himself. But it's going further now. Now it's almost becoming 5D chess, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a 4 deep, maybe 5 deep positional Venn diagram, like our friend Gus Usher pointed out. It's not strictly, numbers, except for tight head prop, probably 4 lock and 9. There's some specialists still, but in the end, it's a lot of, hybrid. So it's like combinations. There's a really ingenious stat that the NBA uses. Regardless of what your particular stats are, they measure when certain configurations of players are together for that period of time with unlimited subs, what is the plus minus during that time? So for the Wallabies, Will Skelton, anytime he's on the field, Wallabies are like plus 47 or something, and another player, it's almost unfair because why would you in isolation punish or reward one player? But I think Rassie does have some stat like that where he says, yes, but when I have Mani and Andre together, like, well, what is that combination? It's weird. I don't know what it is. But when you have that, a big, reliable, another boot, Andre is an exit kicking guy as well. Maybe, there's magic in there. And then I also think when you look at 9, 10, 15, something I always look at the end of the match, who's the game managers? And if that's Kobus, Willemse, Fassi, I think he wants to look at some of that. How did they strangle Tate McDermott, who's been a late game scorer for the Wallabies? So Kobus is quicker than Tate. He just is. I mean, physically, he's a sprinter. So you kind of you're matching up also to say, yes, I want to test the Wallaby defense, but I also want to make sure that they don't score too many tries. I think there's a point of pride in Springbok land. If you look at, a year ago, Rugby Championship, Argentina scored more points against the Wallabies, average over 40. New Zealand and South Africa, sort of the same, scored about 32 points against the Wallabies. But look at the against. The Boks only allowed 9 points in each game to Australia, in Australia, using a B team. And I think they're really proud of that, and internally. So when I look at this team, I'm excited about the boogie, as our friend Johan calls it. But I also think it's a strong defensive team. I think this team tackles, this team cleans, this team pilfers. When you have Malcolm Marx, Sia, Peter Steff, and Monica van Staden, that's mayhem. Every breakdown is horrible. It's miserable. And I think it's another message for Louis de Jager to say, what do you look like against Will Skelton? against a proper big boy. Mix it up.
An aggressive big boy as well. Somebody asked the question this morning. I think Rassie talks a good game. And he talks about playing under Joe Schmidt or working under Joe Schmidt when he was training at coaching at Munster, and Joe's such a detailed guy, blah, blah, blah. But yes, I have to be very careful with the words that I'm using here. The big thing today and last night when the news broke isn't so much the fact who he chose. It was the fact that he's chosen to announce the team on a Monday, never mind on a Tuesday, which is really earlier than anybody else in the world. Doesn't it sort of smack a little bit of arrogance? And I'm gonna expand on that by saying, he said, listen, yeah, we'll see what Australia does. If they go 6-2, we might just bring RG in and go to 6-2 as well. Isn't that a little bit almost high-handed? I don't know if that's the right word, but you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, but our friend Andre Pretorius was saying on our WhatsApp chat group, the Boks best is better than the Wallabies best. And that's just a plain, cold, hard fact. So why not just acknowledge it in a way, not by being Vengat, but just handling your own business. So I think Rassie says, we're just going to pick our team. There's nothing to react to. And then he has a small footnote caveat which says, yeah, but if they go 6-2, we'll pick Argia. So it's kind of funny because it's, in a way, it's like this confident statement, but also like, we can also change. So maybe you do it on Monday because then you have time to change. That's one point. Second point is purely about growing the game, seizing the moment, owning the news cycle. Why not? It's, on end of year tour in the North, all the journos loved Rassie because he would take time. He would do a long press conference. He would explain stuff that no one else explains. Joe Schmidt plays poker. He doesn't ever say what he really means. It's all smoke and mirrors. Rassie just kind of tells you what it is. So true, I agree with you. That's confident. But I also think there's a part of him that's selling. He's selling the game. He's expanding. He's not being so old-fashioned rugby, like, oh, well, we always announce it on Thursday at noon. Why? What's the point? And also, why not change? Why not keep changing teams? It's fun, Oh, here's our team. And then 2 days later, go, actually, no, just kidding. That's funny. Who cares? In other sports, they do it all the time. In some sports, they do it as you go on the pitch. What's this sacred thing? We have to put the team sheet down. I think Rassie is just a different cat.
I was there with our friend Jared Wright from Planet Rugby, and the one thing we had a coffee afterwards, and he said, it's surprising, not surprising, but noticeable how open Rassie is. He answers any question you ask, he answers it in detail. But most coaches, like you just said, Joe Schmidt plays poker. Andy Scott Robertson gives you the standard token answer. Yeah, he looked in good shape, he's what we needed. That's why we picked him. Rassie goes into depth. Why did we do this? Where's Sia going to play? Blah, blah, blah. When Don was happy with Sia on the scrum, he said that specifically. So, I mean, that again, the fact that he can be that open because, doesn't matter. We tell you what you want to know and see if you can beat us anyway. Yeah, maybe it's not arrogance. It's just supreme confidence.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of work to do. Rassie has this 2015 spine. The vestiges of it are still present. And he has to decide right now, probably this year, which one of those guys, Mostert, Pollard, who's taking me 2 more years? And how do I shepherd that talent? How do I guard it? I don't want to waste it, but also it's a lot of IP to get rid of Bonky and Banambi. Imagine the things he knows and the scouting reports he has and the ability he has to get under the skin. On the other hand, if you feel like you take these good lessons, you look at them and you say, ooh, he didn't really dominate a sort of mediocre Wallaby hooker. Maybe I'm looking, wider. So I think it's all part of it. If you took Rassie's brain and you were able to look at it and actually, I think there's a lot of stuff going on in there. And, we at our peril, we try to assign, a clear 1, 2, 3 syllogism. I think it's much more like a washing machine in there, just things happening and, clothes moving around.
Well, I just wanted to say Rassie looked in exceptionally good form and good health. And
good.
In a good mood, and he was eloquent. And I enjoyed that press conference. I just don't like this new 10-minute rule. After 10 minutes, we have to switch off our cameras, come to think of it. So I'm not going to even publish that thing, but it was interesting to hear what they had to say. Grant Williams was also quite eloquent, answered a lot of questions. And, reference was made to the fact that Grant Williams might be inexperienced. And I think back to what he did against England, doesn't mean anything. He's got the talent. He's the right guy. He's actually, they were asked the question, is the Ramadan jersey now yours? And he said, no, I'm working for it, blah, blah, blah. And Rassie said, may I answer that? He said, no, no jersey belongs to any player. It's whoever needs to be here on that day. Anyway, last thoughts?
I think this is interesting. It's an interesting test because of how Eden Park is looming. And so even while everything we've said, I think is valid, but at the back of his mind, and I shouldn't say his, Felix, Jerry, Tony, it's all going to come down to how well they perform, win or lose, close or not. I mean, not close is bad, but even if there's a close loss or a close win, it's not going to be, no one's going to rout anyone, I think, in Eden Park. But they're always thinking about, and so what combinations would work against Jordy Barrett and Rico Ioane and Bowden Barrett? So I think this is an interesting trial because Australians playing against New Zealand all the time, in the Super Rugby, it's a nice practice to say, let's look at what most of these things look like with, I guess, some good operators on the floor. And so the longer I think about this team, besides speed, it's a breakdown team.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. We'll have another chat later this week to talk about things. And also we're going to be doing a little bit of an episode on our friend Matt Williams. Give him some of his own medicine. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks, Harry.
There you go. Cheers.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.